Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, by the way. Mary, can you turn down the one that says Doug next to it, please? It's a little loud. No, it's like number 4. That's good. Thank you. It's kind of hard to do the sound and preach all at the same time. Anyway, welcome to Youth Sunday, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially my mom sitting over there. I went and woke her up this morning all dressed up, and I said, Happy Mother's Day. She said, it's not Mother's Day, it's your day. And I said, no, there's always Mother's Day on the second Sunday. So, anyway, my name is Patrick Mattioli, for anyone that doesn't know me. And for those of you right now who are thinking to yourself, I know this guy from somewhere. I'm normally in the back doing tech stuff like the sound or the screen, so you may have seen me back there. So, who takes the sermon notes? Does anyone take the sermon notes? Yeah, a few people. There's a quick typo that I'd like to address. Maybe, Bradley, can you turn it down a little more, please? It's still ringing. Okay. The first one says you need to build on our house. It's supposed to say your house. So quick, just change the word "our" to the word "your." And that was my mistake when I emailed them to Jeremiah and put into the bulletin. Anyway, that's the only mistake so far. Our second reading today comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 10 through 15, and it can be found on or around page 167 in the New Testament of the Bible. However, if you don't want to find it, it will be up on the screens. According to the grace that God has given to me, like a skilled master builder, I lay a foundation, and someone else is building on it. Each builder must choose with care how to build on it. For no one can lay any foundation other than the one that has been laid, the foundation of Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, the work of each builder will become visible, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed with fire, and that fire will test what sort of work each has done. If what has been built on the foundation survives, the builder will receive a reward. If the work is burned up, the builder will suffer loss. The builder will be saved, but only as through fire. In case no one really noticed the similarity between the two passages that were read this morning by Bradley and I, they both were about God's foundation. The first reading brushes up on what God's solid foundation really means, and the commitment that you made to the foundation of God. And the second reading is about God's foundation also, but taking it one step further and building on it. What exactly does it mean to build on God's foundation? How is foundation defined? When I looked it up in my Merriam-Webster dictionary, I found that foundation is a noun and is the basis upon which something stands or is supported. So God's foundation is the foundation on which our faith stands. That God is the base on which our foundation is supported. I grew up at CPC, going to Sunday school at a very young age, then progressing into the RAD, or Really Active Disciples program in middle school, but now it's called BLAST! As Jill likes to call it. And that stands for Believing, Living, and Sharing Truth. And that's for all the middle schoolers. This is also the time frame in which I began getting into doing the tech stuff here at church. Starting off with the screens one Sunday a month, turned into doing the screens the first Sunday of every month, and that turned into helping Lisa design the slides whenever she needed a little bit of extra help. Moving into high school, I moved further into doing tech stuff, getting more involved with the sound and letting more other people do the screens since I was kind of hogging it all up. But also going into high school, I got involved in a lot of other things here at the church. For example, I got involved with doing stuff at VBS, helping make dinners for Build a Life U, and going with the junior hires to junior high camp up at Calvary Crest, which was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I grew up in this church and I've always had a strong house built on my solid foundation of God. However, last summer some things happened that could have easily rocked that foundation. It was a very rough summer for me. It started off like normal with my annual trip to Minnesota to my grandparents' cabin. But when I came home, that's when stuff really started to get rough. But my parents' marriage was ending. My emotions became too much for me to deal with at my own home, so I found myself sleeping at other people's homes almost every night of the week. It was a very rough summer. But eventually, my mom, sister, and I got settled into a new house. But I'll get back to my summer story in a minute. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians to build on our house carefully, or build on your house carefully, warning us that we shouldn't build another foundation over the foundation of Christ. Building a foundation over Christ is like making something else your idol, breaking the first commandment. You wouldn't make something like money, or houses, or your car, or famous people like movie stars or sports athletes above God. Or something completely different, you wouldn't make yourself an idol to other people by saying, hey, you need to worship me. Building on top of your foundation, building on top of a foundation different from the foundation of God will lead to problems in the long run. Problems that you'll have trouble getting through, because God was pushed out in the making of your house. Paul also points out that no matter what we made our house with, that when the sun comes up and the light shines on your house, it will be seen and stand out for what it is. Whether your house is a huge tower made with some of the most expensive rocks in the world, or your house is a lot of perfectly tiny organized sticks, however you like to make it, when the light shines on it, no matter how your house is built, it will be shown and revealed for what it is. And anyone that is looking will be able to see it. But Paul also gives us a good warning. He gives us a warning about the fire. He tells us that when the light shines, the fire will be revealed. A good question to ask yourself when you see the light is, how strong is your house? Can it stand the test? The fire itself came through and wiped out, the fire itself can come through and wipe out your house at any moment. Any moment that you are not anticipating. It is very unexpected. Coming back to my summer story again, at the start of summer, I felt like I had a great house built on a solid foundation of God. A house that had been remodeled and added onto for my entire life. It was strong. And going into a summer where I had no idea how it was going to end up, if you would have asked me if my house would withstand any fire, I would have said, of course it would. But that wasn't the case. I was wrong. I found myself questioning my foundation a lot and searching for help. I was afraid and I was sad. The fire came through and it destroyed my house completely. And I was left trying to run out of the fire and looking at all that I had left, questioning my foundation. I had to tell myself not to let go of it, not to let go of God's solid foundation. It's not just something bad that can happen in your life that will ruin your house on your foundation. It's different for everyone, like losing a loved one, young or old, or a pet, or getting a bad grade on a test, or getting involved with the wrong group of friends and drinking uncontrollably or doing illegal drugs, or maybe even disobeying your parents. The way people build their house and the way people experience things is different from person to person. Something bad for you might be something very little for someone else. That's how we are all different in our own ways. If you feel like your house is burning down and you can't go any further, and you feel like you don't have any hope of the future, don't leave your foundation. You might run off your foundation, and you might run far off of it, but always remember to turn around and go back to your foundation. Go back to God, because God will get you through anything. God knows who you are and what your individual needs are. My grandpa always used to pray, God, you know our individual needs better than we can place them before you. That prayer is Psalm 139, and that psalm says it all. A good translation of it that I found is from the Message. God, investigate my life. Get all the facts firsthand. I'm an open book to you, even from a distance. You know what I'm thinking. You know when I leave and when I get back. I'm never out of your sight. You know everything. I'm going to stay I'm going to say before I start the first sentence. I look behind me and you're there. Then up and you're there too. Your reassuring presence coming and going. And that is completely true. God knows when you're going through a rough time. He knows when you're trying to get out of your burning house. If you feel like your house is burning down to the ground, or your house is completely gone, you always have to remember, you always have God as a solid foundation under your house, and that will never change. Paul promises us that if we don't get caught up in everything that burned down in our house, we can escape, and that we can always rebuild, no matter how many times your house gets burned down. But if you let yourself stay inside your house, you're going to get burnt up, and you're going to suffer loss. Stay firm with God's solid foundation. Stay firm with God's love. Stay firm with God's peace and reassurance. You will get through it all with Him as your solid foundation. Gotta remember, don't let the fire of frustration or the wind of wickedness or the storm of sadness destroy your house on God's foundation. You might need to run out of the smoke and ashes and start rebuilding again. But always hold tight to your foundation, even if it's the last thing you have. Please pray with me. How firm a foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in His excellent world. What more can He say than to you He has said? To you who for refuge to Jesus have fled, to you who for refuge to Jesus have fled. God, thank you for being the foundation under all of our houses here today. When the fire comes through, you are always the one under our feet, and the part that we need to remember to hold on to the most. In your name we pray, amen.